We had to go to the US.
Whew, that's another change.
I tell you, it was the biggest cultural change. 48 hours, didn't know the language. Going into this mixed class, I'd never seen a Chinese before. You are seeing all these different nationalities. I'm seeing a black kid there. And the next thing I say, hey, Molo Mfundini. This guy looks at me. He says, what? Then I knew that I was in trouble. To stretch the budget of whatever we had.
You had to support each other.
We had soup this side one evening and another soup this side another evening. It went like that. As a result, my kids don't like soup.
You gave them too much soup.
Too much soup. It was the darkest moment.
King David Studio Podcast.
It's an honor and a privilege today. We hang out with Mxolisi Mgojo. I've watched so many videos, read so much just in preparation of this, and because I didn't want to downplay it. From now on, we have this new thing we're doing. We talk to people of his caliber. What is your caliber? How you say? Let's do this right.
I'm not sure why we even have to create labels like those. You are a person. I guess God put me here for a purpose.
Yeah.
And fortunately, in the course of my journey, I was fortunate through very challenging times to have found him.
Yeah.
And in finding him, it was in a way that I never expected. And that was the turn of events for me.
Wow, really?
It was a life-changing moment. And therefore, I just see myself as an ordinary person who just, God, for whatever reason, felt that he wanted to bless me in a particular way. And with that, obviously, I have my own sense of what I think I should be doing with my life. And really, it's about being of service.
Yeah. There's a book I read, Conversations with God. It speaks of service. It speaks of what else are you here for? You're here, you're born and you die. What do you do in between?
Otherwise, it becomes a meaningless life.
Yeah.
A life without a purpose. It's actually not a life. I don't think a soul came here to be rudderless.
To just hang around.
Just to hang around for no reason.
Do you have a clear sense of that purpose? And was it easy for you to find it?
The story in itself, the journey itself, is one I, for one, could have never have crafted. There's no crafting. Where I landed is beyond my wildest dreams.
Wow.
In actual fact, I never had a dream like this. So, and really, it's been a journey. And when you look at your life and you see things happening and events happening in your life, some of them are very painful. We can talk about those as we go along, but somehow they are the things that are busy shaping what's to come. They're busy preparing you. As a result, I've always come to understand now why, a sword has to go through fire for it to be shaped for battle,
You being a man of coal, is coal one of the processes of a diamond, one of the stages of a diamond?
Long stage.
We should wait.
It takes million years for coal to become a diamond.
And a lot of fire.
And that's why it's so precious.
Yeah.
Because it's over time you finally get this gem. But so it was never scripted.
Never.
It was never scripted. It's been guided.
And you know that it's not you that's guiding it.
Absolutely not me. And therefore, the blessings are not mine for myself, but they are to be shared.
Have you been conscious of this? I'm just riding this boat.
If I just give you my own background, born of a Methodist minister. My mother was a nurse.
Pastor's kids,
but they're not always the best kids.
That's why I highlighted.
They are normally very rebellious sometimes, and I can understand why they become rebellious.
Do you want to tell us now?
Well, I must say that in as much as I grew up in a Christian home, went to Sunday school, prayed every night and all of that, every morning, at some stage in my life, I got very disillusioned by the church. I wasn't disillusioned about who God was. I was disillusioned about the institution. Because unfortunately, like any institution, it's run by people, and people have their faults.
Of course.
And the church in itself has its own politics. It's got its own way of doing things, and I think sometimes they lose focus of what their calling
Which is
truly is.
Which is God.
It's to be service.
Yeah.
Service. And I said, no,
Jeez.
this is not going to be for me.
Was Daddy still in the picture?
Oh yeah, I told him, and I mean, my father-in-law was a very strong layman in the church also. So I told them, guys, I'm sorry, you guys are just no different. At least at least any other organization, when you've got politics like that, they're not claiming to be servants of God. To
At least,
I say I'm not observing some of the 10 Commandments.
Oh, that's concerning.
In your practices,
Yes.
in the way you do things. But so I just
Jeez.
go to church. We just didn't go to church. But
How old were you in your teens? Oh,
I was already married when.
whoa.
But just going back now,
Yes, to the beginning.
To the beginning. So I was born in Durban, but my home is in Mzumkulu. Come from Mzumkulu. That's where my father comes from. My mother comes from a place called Ntabankulu, in the Eastern Cape. And being a minister's kid, you were always on the move because the church was always moving you around.
The father is moving, so you move with that. Is that?
Father
Yes.
is moving.
Yes.
Father
Because that's what ministers do.
Yeah, that's what they do. They move around and rural areas, mostly rural, very rural areas.
Yeah.
So
And these are not short visits. These are uyohlala.
Well, in those days, the church used to move them every 18 months. It's not like today where a minister can be in a church for years. Those days, remember, he was a young minister, so he was still he had to
Move around.
And so it was always difficult to make friends because no sooner do you make a friend, then you've got to move. So at some point, just at the age of just before I turned 10, I had to go and stay with my grandmother.
Okay. What was that for?
The reason being that my grandmother was getting old. She had a homestead, and we partly was there to help her. We had cattle, we had sheep, we had, all of those things had to be looked after. So it was for me to go there when my father was being moved to the Federal Theological Seminary, which at that time was in Alice.
Okay.
So I spent time.
No gogo.
Gogo.
How you say 10? Surely you were not the only one that was deployed to that.
I was the only one there because I'm the oldest grandchild.
10 is still a young boy.
Oh no! By the time you're 10 in the rural life, you've got great responsibilities.
That's true.
You've long been out there heading cattle. Mainly your whole holiday. Lapaya.
Yes.
You are tendering to the animals. So it was fun. That's life of rural life. So you never saw anything wrong with that. It was just expected of you.
It's interesting. It almost makes it sound like the modern life we live now slows down our growing process.
Definitely. Sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
The youngsters today don't understand it. So when you have to go and spend time before you go to school, you've got to take the cattle out and the sheep out.
Jeez.
You can't sleep until they're all back.
And you're short day one.
You're short day one. You've got to
go look for it.
And you do that at a young age.
At 10.
At a young age.
They would call it abuse today.
Oh, my goodness. Oh.
Child labor, all of those words.
Well, you were part of labor. Everybody had to contribute to the home. You know, from the youngest to the oldest, you had to contribute.
Yeah.
That was part of your keep. We didn't see it like that, but that's just what it was when you really think about it.
Now you're back with Gogo. What happens to this young boy?
You know, my father then, whilst in Alice, got a scholarship to go to Harvard.
Whoa.
Do his doctorate.
Oh.
And therefore, I had to be uprooted from the life of a rural boy, shepherd boy, to be taken all the way to Alice, where it was a mixed community. There were even white neighbors because this was a federal theological seminary.
Yeah.
In an environment which I just could not comprehend. I mean,
what was so foreign about it, though?
whites.
That.
Whites.
Yeah.
You know, and now I had to be. I remember now I'm coming from the village. You don't even want to wear shoes. You don't want to be the odd one wearing shoes. You know, so you deliberately don't wear your shoes. So you know you've got Lensila, you know, and all of that. So now here I am. Like I'll never forget my first day arriving there, where I literally had to be manicured.
They had to
scrubbed me down and
I know all that process. That's what they use a stone.
leech. So you had to go through that whole process and then and try and learn a language, which I actually, first of all, it was just a bit of a culture shock.
Jeez.
You know?
How long were you with Granny then for this to be such a huge transformation?
I was with Granny for about a full year.
That is a long time. As the only boy.
The only boy. Later on, a cousin of mine who was 4 came, you know.
Still very young.
Still very, very young, you know. So then we had to go to the US.
That's another change.
I tell you, it was the biggest cultural change. And it was a very painful change for me because I will never forget. I mean, within 48 hours of arriving, my father already had me in a school.
Sheer. Whoa. There's no time to settle in.
48 hours. Didn't know the language. Going into this mixed class, you know, I'd never seen a Chinese before. You know, you are seeing all these different nationalities. I'm seeing a black kid there, and I go, my desk was next to this youngster, and I see a black kid, and for me, a black person spoke Xhosa or
Zulu,
you know,
yes,
because even my universe within South Africa was very limited.
Absolutely, it's tiny.
So I didn't know there were Tswanas and vendors.
That's interesting. It's actually interesting when you say it. I knew immediately that you were saying it's this small, it's this tiny.
So I see this guy, and the next thing I say, "Hey, molo mfundini." This guy looks at me. He says, "What?" Then I knew that I was in trouble. This guy couldn't even understand me. So yeah, it was a tough early part because I came from Africa. People thought very negatively of Africa.
True.
So you were bullied. You were pretty much
outcast. You can't speak English.
So it took time to be able for me to acclimatize into that environment. But I think the toughness of growing up in the rural environment really did help in the sense that although I could deal with toughness, but still at an emotional level, it was painful because any form of abuse like that is an emotional. It doesn't matter where you
are. Yeah, it doesn't matter how strong you think you are.
How strong you are, you know, it's emotional abuse. But so we were there for 5 years. My parents, my dad. So I started grade 6, just
Yes.
before high school.
Yes, is it
So
grade 6?
yeah, something
Yes.
like that.
Yeah, I always get them
Yeah,
wrong as well.
yeah.
Nami ngiyazi ama-standard nama-form.
So I started there, and then he completed when I was in the 11th grade.
Jeez,
It was
it's
15.
a long stay.
15, you know.
Did you academically adjust to this?
I know I did. I
Yeah,
did.
because it was a language shift.
Yeah, fortunately, America is a melting pot.
That's true.
Got kids coming from all over. You know, they are from Vietnam. They are
Everywhere.
So I suddenly realized that no, I'm not the only one in this boat. You know, you know. So you started making friends around those who felt. I think my real friend was an Alaskan.
That's unusual.
I was an Alaskan kid because he was also a bit ostracized because he was from Alaska. You know.
Yeah. So you never truly adjusted. So you had what we call an American high school experience.
I had an American high school experience, and so at the age of 15, my father. This was now 1975. My father completed his studies, and I guess between the two of them, my parents, they made a decision that I should stay
in the States.
In the States.
What were they seeing?
They were seeing what was, first of all, I had not done any Afrikaans. You know, it was a recipe for me failing.
Oh, yeah. That was the 70s.
Yeah, that was the 70s, mid-70s, just at the birth of 76.
Yeah.
So they said, you know what, it's going to be a huge adjustment for me. And the language issue with Afrikaans is just going to be problematic.
Yeah.
I never quite understood why they didn't say, okay, we'll take you to Swaziland.
Oh, yeah, Botswana.
Whatever, you know. But the decision was that, okay, he will remain behind.
With who?
We're going to be left with some family friends. But when I went, I was in my father's passport.
Okay.
So I had to come back to South Africa and get my own passport to go back.
Of course. You were a minor.
And the only passport I could get was a Transkeian one.
Okay.
Because at that time...
Oh, yeah, it was an independent state.
It was an independent state.
Yeah.
But funny enough, none of my parents in my family had a Transkeian passport. I was the only one that had a Transkeian passport.
You were a foreigner.
I was a foreigner within my own home.
And you were still going to be an even more foreigner elsewhere.
Go back. And then I had to get back there by myself. You know, I traveled by myself back to the US. And
it must have been quite an experience for a young kid.
Yeah, I was 15. But one thing that America did teach me was the notion of work. I mean, I used to have a paper route. You know, that's how you make pocket money,
That's
like
it.
other kids, you know. So I did all of those things as I was growing up there. So I went back to the States and lived with the family friends up to the end of my first year at university.
Yeah.
You know, when I got into university, and then I managed to get a scholarship from the UN, but it only paid for my fees.
Tuition.
Yeah. So the upkeep, room and board and all of that, I had to see to finish.
How did you manage?
My father's a minister. There's no money there. My mother's a nurse. There's really not much, a lot of money. I had my sister who was born there.
In America?
Yeah, who was...
So you have an American sister?
I've got an American sister.
Wow.
She holds 2 passports.
2 passports, yes.
Because they force you to have an American passport.
Yes.
So they were trying to give her a decent education, so they put her at Epworth Methodist School in so there was really not money, you know.
Yeah.
So, but hey, in America, most students are funding their education.
They have to do stuff.
So part of jobs, you know, I did every job from filling petrol to waitering to everything. And every summer, because it's a semester system. So during summer, you can continue schooling.
Okay.
You know? So I converted a 4-year program into a 3.5 years.
So it goes quickly.
So that it went quickly. So literally, I didn't see my family for 5 years.
So you never came back?
Never came back. There was no money.
Wow.
There was no money. So
It was just calls.
when I was looking after myself, I told my parents, I think I was 17. I said, listen, you don't have to send me money or trying to send me. I'm okay.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So that made me grow up very quickly. The only relative that I had during that period is that for 2 years, my uncle, my mom's brother, came and studied in a place called Binghamton, in the US.
Was it far from where you were?
It was a 15 hours to get there.
Still not close. It's a long distance relationship. Wow.
So I used to go there for Christmas, but then after they came back, so that was the only family that I really had. But I can say one thing: the white family that I stayed with, they had 2 sons. They are still my brothers even today.
What?
I've taken my wife there. We talk still today. We are I'm in my early 60s. He's in his early 60s, and
so you were about the same age even then.
Age,
yeah.
And we actually originally met at a church. We had a Sunday school together, and so that's how the friendship came about.
And how did you end up living with them then?
Well, they asked. They said they were willing for me to stay with them.
What were they seeing? Were they seeing this lonely kid? What were they seeing?
No, I mean, it was a friendship, with the parents.
Yeah.
And that they knew the desire was for me to stay there, and they saw they've got 2 sons, to be a nice home environment. And it was a brilliant environment.
You don't look at it and say there were challenges.
There was always going to be a challenge that I'm away from home. I can't see
That's
my
it,
family.
yeah.
But they became my family, and up to now.
It's
up
incredible.
to now, we were chatting a month ago
That's incredible.
with them. I've even taken my wife to go and see them, and the mom still is alive. So it's they really became my second home. And another thing about it is that it was a white family.
I was about to say, I'm trying to patch this rural boy with 10 who had never met white people and moved to Ellis. Now there's white neighbors. That's a shock.
Yeah.
And who ended up living with the white family in America.
And they are still
they're still family.
I consider them family.
Wow.
That gave me a different view and perspective about people. That it's very easy to judge and generalize about people, of a certain color, of a certain whatever, and generalize about them, because remember, those were during very difficult times in South
Africa.
So people may not understand, how can you say that you lived with a white family and you call them family? They were people first.
Before
It's just that their pigmentation happened to be different from me, because the way they treated me, they showed all the love to me.
Was there a measure of psychological adjustment to first day, first week, first month, I'm still adjusting? Or was it an easy...
Because I knew them.
Yeah.
I knew them. I mean, I'd known for that whole period which my parents were there, I knew them.
You knew them, yeah.
Go and sometimes camp with them and all of those sorts of things, So it
wasn't tricky.
It was not tricky. I just saw these people who were very consistent about how they treated me, and they just showed me love.
What is the big lesson, though, from that experience that you've taken with you throughout your life?
Well, it's just that point when I was saying that, people look at a person for what a person is. Don't judge a person by any other thing than what you see being the heart of the individual. Once you start judging people based on the exterior, you lose the opportunity, you forego the opportunity of creating meaningful relationships.
That's true. And because you walked in wearing
because the truth of the
covers.
matter, there are some black people I would never want to be associated with.
True. And yet they're your color.
If you look at my profile picture, you'll see my grandchildren there. They are very light.
Yeah.
My son, my daughter-in-law, my daughter is white.
Yes.
You see, so it takes away those barriers around looking at the individual. I saw a very beautiful young lady with a good heart whom I saw was good for my son, made a man out of him. And I said, now that is a person that I would want to be my daughter.
Irrespective of her color.
Irrespective of her color.
That's an interesting one. You had an interesting life, because I remember reading your profile. It says studied in the US. It's like in the 70s. How in the world did he pull it off? and now when you hear it, I thought, was this exile? Because you think of things like that.
Of course.
In the 70s and 80s, South Africans who studied in the US, most of them you find there's exile in it, Ibabaleka and all of that. And now do you come back home 5 years later? What were you studying, by the way?
My original intention was medicine. Since I was 6, I wanted to be a doctor. My mom's cousin was a doctor, and this man was my idol when I grew up.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a doctor. And then at first year university in the US, before you can go to medical school, you have to do a pre-med.
Pre-med, yes.
4-year degree, BSc. So I started out on that after first year. Fortunately, when you do a BSc in the US, you're all attending basically the same classes.
As the med students?
Any students.
Okay.
Maybe 1 or 2 classes may be different, but generally physics, chemistry, all of maths and all of those things, you're all attending the same. So, and then I was doing biology, and when we started doing dissecting of things and all of that, and I said, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I've chosen. I'm choosing the right.
You didn't like seeing the insides of a frog.
No, this passage is not going to be for me, So I really had a very crisis moment. To say, well, all your life, you've always wanted to be a doctor. Now what do I become?
Yes.
So I was very fortunate that I had a very good maths teacher, professor, who said, did you ever think about computers? I said, no.
And it was in the 70s.
Yeah, he says, and I said, no, I never thought about doing computers. He says, well, why don't you do just 1 semester?
And try it out.
You can always use it as an elective because it's part of things which you can use for another program as an elective.
That's it, yes. Wow.
The rest is history. So I ended up doing a computer science degree.
Imagine that. And what is a computer science degree that early on in the story of computers? Because that's fairly early.
Yeah, it was a software engineer, so I was writing programming and so.
Was it an early thing to everyone?
No, computers. In America, they were already advanced.
True.
Computers.
Yes.
They were offering programs in computer science. There were no shortages of jobs when you graduated.
That's true.
In terms of being a software engineer programmer. So I completed in December 1980. I recall calling my father. It was around November. I said, "Okay, I'm coming home next month." So he couldn't understand why I would come home again in June. Because,
yes.
It's with full expenditure.
That's it, yeah.
And I said, no, don't worry. I've got my ticket. I've already bought my ticket. And guess what? I'm actually finishing next month.
So I'll be done.
I'll be done because I've been going to summer school.
Oh, so because you made it quicker.
Exactly, made it quicker.
Yeah.
Got home back in South Africa.
Pause 1 second. Was the plan always to come back?
Well, after 5 years, I want to come and see my family.
Well, I'm thinking of a guy who now settles in. Well, and America becomes a home.
Remember, I had not made a decision. Well, put it this way. In the minds of everybody else in my family, I guess my dad probably thought I was just going to go back and do my master's.
Yes, of course. Right? Yeah.
So I came back. At that time, and I said, I'm not going back.
Why was that?
Because I just felt that I had been away too long out of South Africa. 10 years now.
It's long.
10 years, and I was not quite sure of my identity. That. I'm not an American. America does not 100% accept me.
They don't see you as one of
I'll
them.
see you as one of them.
Yeah.
And I guess if I'm not going to be seen, at least let me go to where I'm seen. The environment may not be conducive for me, but at least I'm at home.
When is that time-wise? Is it in the...
This was in 1980.
You stayed long, eh?
Stayed long.
Yeah.
And when I got back, then I said, okay, you're not going. I said, why don't you just apply as a backup,
Apply for what?
For back home.
Okay.
Okay. But obviously, that time, there were a lot of these Fulbright scholarships for black students. The whole program was really flourishing at that time in terms of enabling black South Africans to get full scholarships, not part scholarship, full scholarship, which pays
everything,
a stipend and all of that.
Why was that? What was going on in the relations of America and South Africa? Why was that the case? Do you remember?
I guess, as part of that whole, I remember a lot of companies, American companies were also pulling out. So there was just that whole thing around apartheid, giving black South Africans the opportunity to,
to have a better life.
Further their education, I guess, elsewhere, So that happened. Well, I've got a computer science degree.
You're in South Africa.
In the break bar, and you start looking, you say, oh.
Were they jobs?
Whites, you've got to be nothing for Africans.
It couldn't have been in the ad, though.
They were very specific in the ads those days.
What was it saying? Looking for computer science engineer. Remote vet VAs. Wow.
I mean, if they were as specific as writing on the chair, whites only.
That's true. So even that. That's incredible.
Yeah, so I was not a prospect of getting a job as a computer science. So I got a job in a bookshop, selling books and packing books in the shops.
With an American computer science degree.
Earning 150 Rand a month.
That's incredible.
So that was my whole of 81.
It doesn't even make sense.
That was 81.
Which part of the country do you come back to?
Pietermaritzburg. That's where my dad was, at the theological seminary there.
So wherever home is, because daddy also moves around.
Well, at that time, he was not moving.
Okay.
He was lecturing.
Because, he went to study in the States.
Yes.
He comes back an educated man.
Yes.
Does the church use his education?
Yeah, at the theological seminary.
Yeah.
But when he went and studied, he did a PhD in theology, where he was doing Greek, Coptic, Aramaic, German.
Jeez.
So that he could learn and read the Hebrew, Hebrew, so he could be able to read the original.
The scriptures,
before they were even translated.
His passion for theology is quite admirable, to go really all the way to the top in terms of academia, because we snubble past lately, we just open churches.
My father was very, very strict and a very orderly person, and for him, also having grown up in the rural areas, he was always saying that education is very important. Education will liberate you. When he was studying for his doctorate, we used to sit together. He used to sit me next to him. While he was studying, I was studying for my stuff for school, doing my homework, sitting next to him.
Wow. So that clearly left a lasting impression.
Two things about my parents. My father taught me about ethics, work ethics, that you work hard for everything.
Yeah.
Nothing comes easy. You make things happen. Nothing is impossible.
Wow.
If you put your mind to it. That was my father. My mother was more the soft one, about humanity. Although my father was about that, but she showed it in a very soft, loving way.
Yeah, she had a better way of displaying it, I guess.
She had a better
Yes.
way of showing it.
Yeah.
So those are the two values that I really picked up from my parents, and also respecting people, not judging people.
We need those right now.
Yeah.
More than ever in our lives.
Yeah. So decided, okay, remember now I was going to go back to the US to do
In case.
an MBA. Now,
Okay.
America is a very interesting place that after your undergraduate, you can actually go into postgraduate and do an MBA. And you
Without experience, because in South
I
Africa.
said, yes, when I think about it, it's a bit crazy. So I applied to Wits Business School.
But
I accept. So I came into the 1982 program.
Wow.
At Wits Business School.
They wouldn't do that now, though.
I don't think they would dare to do that.
Yes.
But I flunked out in September.
Do you know why?
There were 7 of us. 6 of us didn't make it. 1 made it.
Whoa.
Now, here you are. Business school is at Wits and, Parktown. We are living in Glen Thomas in Soweto. At the Black Res there with other students. Now most lectures were also on weekends.
Okay.
Saturdays. So during the week, you've got transport. The weekend, you've got to make your way all the way to Parktown.
Oh, it's not easy.
So you have to find a taxi to go to Bree Street, and then you walk all the way from Bree Street
to Parktown. It's not a short distance.
It's not a short distance.
Yeah.
Your white friends, counterparts are coming with their cars.
Of course.
And to make things worse, part of your program, you've got to go and do things in companies, projects. Who is my dad? Your
dad is in Maritzburg.
My dad doesn't even know anybody is in a corporate. So you don't have access.
Of course.
To resources. So some others, the one who made it, she was lucky. She was in a syndicate group.
Okay.
That one of the syndicate group members, 2 or 3 of them, their dads were executives. One was like a CEO. So she had
access, yeah.
We didn't have access.
It was impossible.
It was almost like an impossible journey from day one.
Jeez.
But I think because I want to believe that because they had to fulfill a quota system.
They said, let them come in.
The fact that you may not make it, was never considered. That was a support system that had to be there, even for the university, to help those students to get access to those corporates.
And to be honest, there were few of you. It surely wouldn't have been that difficult.
Yeah, so that's part of the challenge that, and of course, and they had a system that out of the 23 courses, you were only allowed to do subs 3 times. So you'd fail, and then you'd do a sub,
again.
and then you'd get it right. Okay?
Yes.
But once you've used your quota of 3 subs, that's it.
Askis, go try another university.
So out I went, and then the following year I decided, no, I'm going to go to apply for a master's in computer science now.
Pause 1 second. The idea of wanting to be in business administration as a degree, what inspires that from this young man who is working at a library, doesn't earn a lot, and is living with parents in Maritzburg?
I guess it was fashionable at that time.
Yeah.
MBAs were the thing. If you've got an MBA, it's certainly in the US, it was a big thing.
They are the future CEOs.
I don't even think at that time I was even thinking of business, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was not thinking about business. I think it was what I was seeing
happening around you.
Around me.
Yeah.
In the US, it would have been a natural thing. I mean, I had friends also who were going to go and do their MBAs, That didn't work out. So I decided to apply for a master's in computer science.
And you got in?
I got in, but 18 months later, my supervisor, just when we're now at the point of doing, it was a coursework ended, I think, he says, And I think I was almost on my last chapter.
Of the thesis.
The thesis.
Yeah.
And he says that no, he doesn't think that he can continue being my advisor on the topic because the topic was a little bit too new. And
Oh, no.
I said, but why did you accept it?
And why did you stay on this long?
You stay on this long. And then he says, well, no, I think you need to start a new topic. I said, after 18 months.
I've just completed my MBA. I know how hard it is to complete a thesis. And no one should tell you at the last minute that change.
The interesting part was that now the research work I was doing at that time was with a company called Sperry, which was an American company, and they had offices in Cape Town. So I used to spend a lot of my time there with them.
Yeah.
And part of it was writing code as part of my research work that I was doing because I was testing things. Okay. And then I told them, guys, I'm not going to complete this master's.
Ooh, that's horrible.
So I need to probably go and find a job. They said, well, where are you going? I said, well, where else can I really go? To Joburg. Probably I'll try it. They said, well, our head office is in Joburg. So they offered me a job.
Look at that.
At Sperry in the US. And that's when I got now into the field.
It's interesting that you're a coder at heart.
That's what I had studied.
Yes. And how long were you with them for?
No, I stayed with them except for a stint when that was an experience on its own. It was part of a big project that I was involved in. Now, remember, this is an American company. It had an American MD also.
Of course, yeah.
And part of the project that we did was that we got a huge tender to build a communications system that was going to be with Spornet. It was still called Spornet at the time. Okay. And it was going to be a global team. Guys were coming from London, coming from the US, some coming from Asia. And I was very fortunate to have been selected to be also part of that team. And we were going to be housed at Spornet's head office in Braamfontein.
Yeah.
And I was the only black. And of course, Spornet says, no duckies use this toilet.
Oh, hell.
So I would have to go to the old station part, the other part of the station where
the building is,
to go to the toilet. And this MD said, not a chance. My MD said, not a chance. He comes with the contract. Take him or leave him. It's not an option for you.
That was a big risk on their part.
Yeah. No, just simply... Remember, that was their attitude. They were also very, in their own way, trying to fight the system.
True.
Okay?
In the small little corners.
Small little ways. So Spornet had to contend with me being in that part of the building where it was all whites.
Using their
toilets.
What a time, eh?
Yeah.
That's interesting. And you hang around. You're not a token black.
No.
You're a useful black.
I'm cutting code here.
Yes.
And
what kind of work exactly was happening at the time? Like, what were you contributing to the system, even if it's not you personally, but the company? What were they looking for?
What we were doing there is that they were predominantly an IBM shop. In other words, they had a lot of investment in IBM equipment. But Sperry Univac, in terms of data communication systems, they were just a little bit more advanced than IBM. But now the problem is that these two things couldn't talk to each other because they're using different protocols. They're called protocols, languages. So we had to make ours learn the IBM protocol to split to that one. So we had to build a code which, for the first time anywhere in the world, once we did it, it became a proprietary system for Sperry. Obviously, Sperry ended up merging with Burroughs to create a company called Unisys today. But we were the first pioneers. And that's why we had to put a global team together.
Wow.
And I was lucky to be part of that. So when we finished that whole thing, I decided I got a promotion, but, in another company called Control Data, and then
But within the system, obviously.
but it's all
it's all one company.
No, not Sperry.
Oh, yes.
So after this project was done, the guys went back home.
Okay.
They went back to London, whatever. And I had, because of that skills that I had, I guess I was
You were useful.
I was useful to another company. But
Yeah.
at the side, I saw an opportunity to because at that time I was also staying in Hillbrow.
Okay. A very different hill, bro.
A very, very different Hillbrow in those days. In actual fact, my company, Sperry, had to sign the lease on my behalf to be able to stay there.
Because you were not allowed.
Because,
You were too black.
Because unless you had your company signing your list for you, you were not allowed there, So we went through all of those things.
You are literally recording an episode called My Apartheid Experience. That's what it is. Wow. And now you moved to a different
So
company.
I moved to a different company, and because you keep relationships, important to keep relationships. So the lead of the team, when we were doing that Sportnet project, they were now doing the next phase of the development, because IBM now came up with a new platform.
Wow.
So we had to make sure that our latest platform was able to talk to that. So
Jeez.
I was just talking with with Leslie, and she says, so I was saying, hey, how are things there, that side? She says, no, things are fine. We're busy doing this next phase now. I said, wow, that sounds exciting. Wow, I miss those days. She says, do you want to come?
As simple as that.
Simple as that. Do you want to come? To my wife, at that time I was married already. So I said, now my wife it's a very interesting story of hers, in terms
How you meet, your
we
worlds
meet,
collide.
how our worlds collided. But she had just come back, and we had just been married almost a year, because she had lived in the UK for 6 years.
Whoa.
She went there after matric to go and babysit for her sister, who was a doctor there, and had a young child of 2, and she never came back. She stayed. She studied.
Similar to you,
like
similar
what I
to
did.
you. Yes.
She stayed and she studied, and so.
Where do your worlds collide? It sounds like such an unexpected meeting, this.
Our worlds collided on the first day I came back from the US in December 1980.
At the airport. No way.
At my home.
Okay.
It just so happened that the parents were friends. I didn't know about that.
Wow.
And then when she went, we just were friends, remained friends with each other for years. We were friends. So I was working here. She was studying there.
In the UK.
Yeah. Behold, one day when she came back for holidays, I looked at her and said, Jeepers, what a great friend I've got here.
Oh, yes.
What a great friend. And some guy is probably going to come and take her, and I'll lose my friendship with her. So I took a chance. I said, you are a good friend. Will you want our friendship to continue?
more officially.
Yeah. Will you marry me?
Wow. So you didn't even...
No, we were not even going out when I proposed to her. And she said yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
And she said yes.
And she's still around even now.
34 years later, we are still together.
Hey, maybe we should do that. Maybe there's a plan.
Of course, I married her for the friendship.
More than
anything else.
Yes. Everything else came after.
I guess love, the type of romantic love came after that.
Yes. But there was a friendship love.
It was a friendship love. So it was now, so I said, well, for her, she said, oh, that would be great going back. And at that time, she was also expecting our first one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went there for interviews, and I was taken.
Yeah. That's amazing. Now your life changes again.
My life
It is a major change again.
That's a big change now. We're moving to the UK. So we moved literally. We first arrived at my sister-in-law's place and stayed there, and managed to get, because there was also youngsters there. My nieces who were there, a nephew. So we needed a family support system, especially
True.
with my
With the-
wife.
Yeah, with a little
Expecting,
one. Yeah.
So we got a place which was a 3-minute walk
Okay.
from there eventually. And I had to commute for 2 hours each way
To work.
to work. So I sacrificed myself,
Yeah.
to be closer to the family. So I did that, and then the .com bubble.
Oh boy.
burst.
When does that bubble burst? Is it in the
91.
late
91.
91? Of course. Yes.
Bubble burst.
And you are a tech guy.
Yeah, I'm right there. The bubble burst, and then there was a whole restructuring program. We had to let go of 5,000 people.
Oh no. Oh no.
And I was a victim of that.
Hey.
Hey,
5,000 is a lot. To make it and to be one of the ones that remain is hard.
So they started with foreigners.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it may be first in, last out.
Yeah. So they started with the foreigners.
Mm.
And fortunately, by that time, she also had found a job. The young one was there already about a year and a half, almost 2 years. So after 6 months of trying to get a job, I would get a job, but I could never get a work permit.
In the
So
UK.
things was tough. A lot of even British people were on the streets.
They are part of the
They are
5,000.
part of the 5.
Yeah.
So at some point, we had to make a decision that we need to come home. I said, but then in talking with her, we decided it doesn't make both of us to go back and we both twiddle our fingers our thumbs, because we both don't have a job.
Did she had a job in the UK?
She had a job in the UK, so-
Was it a decent job?
It was a job. Yes. It was a job. Because at that time she had studied to be a textile designer.
Okay.
She was actually very good at it.
Yeah.
And so we decided, no, let me come back. Let me bring the youngster so that she doesn't have that responsibility. I'll take my little one to my parents in Pietermaritzburg.
At least there's that. Yeah.
At least there's that. And
These
then
are huge shifts.
huge shifts. Now, a very interesting thing was happening to me while I was still in the UK was that in as much as I loved what I did, I started asking myself, would I really be wanting to do this in my 40s and 50s? And I said, man, given an opportunity, I would like to go and explore other areas, other things
Yeah.
to do than just being a tech guy,
Yeah.
only.
It's interesting. So early in your life, you already think asking a big life question.
A life question.
Yeah.
So and I realized that be careful of what you put in your mind quite a lot. It just may manifest because
It's generally how it works.
and I said, wow, now I'm retrenched. Now I've got an opportunity to make a different.
Yes.
But what
But
do I do?
were you tired of tech at that time?
I was not, but there was something in me saying that I'm not sure whether this is what I'd want to be doing later on.
It's an important question.
Because I just felt there was just so much more I still wanted to learn and be exposed to. I then decided, this is an opportunity to go do something different. But I had to have an insurance policy. I remember that time, and the insurance policy, but do apply also for positions somewhere on the tech side.
In case
this becomes not viable or doesn't just happen at all. And by that time, we had exhausted all our resources, our funds. We tried to stay there for at least 6 months after I got retrenched, and we're down to the last cent.
Oh, so it was you leave now. Yeah,
it was a desperate situation. So I was fortunate that an old friend of mine introduced me to the group Human Resources Director at Netco.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. And
but what were you thinking of with that?
Well, it was just to go and have a conversation. I need a job.
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter
And
what.
I said, but what I had said to myself was that and hence why Netcore was that when I spoke with this friend of mine, I said, listen, I want to do something different. And I want to be in an industry where I can be exposed to various industries while I'm in that company, to various industries, and get to understand them and to know them. And banking can be like that. Not retail side, but being probably more on the corporate side where you're assigned clients and all of that, clients in cement, clients in mining, then you get to understand those businesses, those industries. I said, that's where I want to go, but I know nothing about it.
Nothing about finance, nothing about corporate finance.
I told this guy, I know nothing about this, but I would like to be in that. He says, well, we do have a management program.
Okay.
You're
an educated guy, so
you've got a management program, but I was getting offers on the IT
so
side.
there was something happening.
Yeah, and then but even within Netcore, they tried to get me into the IT division. I said, no, I don't want to be in the IT division of the company. I want to learn banking.
Wow.
So they said, but you're going to have to start way low. I said, okay. How low is low? It was like this.
Really?
It was a huge financial sacrifice.
And you still took it?
I took it.
What was motivating that? The passion to grow?
To learn something new. I don't want to be stuck in something and then later on in life I regret that I just chased the money.
Yeah.
I never chased the passion.
You highlight an important bit of sacrifice, of stepping back and losing. I remember once I was applying for a job at another radio station, and they were giving me a salary cut, and the programs manager then said, to kick the ball very, very far, you have to step back a few steps, and that's the sacrifice. So you come with enough force to be able to kick the ball.
Exactly.
I must say, on record, I didn't take the job. I don't regret it. I didn't take the job, but I hear it. It's an important.
I'm a family man now, so money was very important.
Yeah.
But I didn't take it. I didn't take it.
You took a sacrifice.
Took a sacrifice. And got into this and met people, created relationships. And then some years later, of course, then I got involved into corporate banking side. I was understudying another guy, working with another guy, and I started learning the ropes and all of that. And then I was approached by Future Bank.
Okay.
It was owned by Tebe.
Yeah, investment.
Yes,
this is transition time.
So they said, hey, man, why don't you come and work for us? Okay, I went.
Did you feel you had enough knowledge now?
Well, I would have hoped so because they wanted me.
and did they get you?
They got me.
Yeah.
So I went there and I think I stayed there for a year and a half, and there was an opportunity. Remember I said in my earlier days I used to write software when I was in Hillbrow. That was normally I was moonlighting.
Okay, so you're doing it on the side.
I was doing it on the side for video shops.
Wow.
To make some inventory management and all
those
things,
type of things. Yeah.
So, and that sort of beat me, the idea of being able to make extra money by doing things on the side.
Young people call it a side hustle.
A side hustle,
Yes.
And that was probably the first inclination of maybe I could do things for myself in the future. I went and hustled for myself, and I've got the various clients here.
Yes.
So then my sister-in-law, her husband, Mfumbes, was a general manager of one of the PG Bison factories I think it's in Boksburg, yeah. And there was an opportunity whereby SAPI was actually selling one of the small operation of theirs.
Sapi, the paper company.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sapi, which was doing components manufacturing.
Ah,
And
okay.
of course, he's that's more up his stream.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided, hey man, maybe we should go and buy this thing. So we said, all right, we secured funding.
That's big thinking, though.
That's big thinking,
Yes.
man. So we secured funding from a company which also was funding BEE players as part of creating, getting working capital. So they become partners, and then we bought this company. I left my job.
Hey,
My wife left her job.
you confident that this will work? Or you tata
This
my chance?
plant is in Durban.
Hey.
We are in Joburg. So my sister-in-law left her job. We all left our job.
You're going there.
We're going to go and run this thing.
Whoa.
But my wife is going to be here. And ultimately, the idea was to create a warehouse here so that we manufacture here and we can bring it closer to the market, and we'll market it from here to the rest of the north,
Hey.
And then I used to commute every Monday
Sure.
in the morning and every Friday in the afternoon, back and forth.
That's
And
a
I
tough
was
job.
driving my old, our old Fox.
Really?
VW Fox.
Wow. It did that?
Yeah, it did that.
It traveled that far?
They made cars though. You feel that this is a car,
So it's a World War car that was commissioned by Hitler. So it's a strong car.
So I used to drive that Fox. The better car, I left it with my wife and the kids up here, So we did that but we started having challenges with our partner in terms of strategy and all of that. And but one thing that was nice about that particular plant was that the technology that Sapi had put in there was it was number one in the country.
Jeez.
In terms of component manufacturing. Yeah. So little did we know that behind our back, our partner was negotiating with one of our competitor to actually buy these assets.
Jeez.
Because he wanted out with us.
But what was? Oh, you said it was a strategy disagreement more than anything.
Strategy. I mean, financiers, they think they know better.
Of course, where
they don't run business. They don't run business.
They look at the balance sheet.
They also mean that they didn't have that experience. It's again to kick it.
Was it a profitable business?
It was a profitable business.
Yeah.
But I think their projections, they wanted it to grow faster. Because they are just looking at it's like, again, step back first so that you can kick far.
Kick far, yeah.
Yeah. They were not prepared to step back first and start thinking about new designs that could differentiate us. We just need to continue building and creating the same product as before, and then you are caught up in a margin squeeze because everybody is
making the
same thing. And we say, no, let's spend money on R&D. The machines are designed, they are computerized and all of that. We can come up with unique designs.
Didn't work. And remember, you put in an entire family into this operation.
We've put in everything here. Then one day, I'll never forget, it was the day before Good Friday. It was on a Thursday.
It's in the 90s still, right?
Still in the 90s.
Yeah, late 90s.
Yeah. It's around 97. The next thing, we see people coming in. There's security people.
Yeah, my daughter.
Because they have come in now to take over the company.
That's hostile.
Give us your computer because it was a company computer.
Of course.
Give us your card. It was a
company.
Give us
your pen.
Give us your card. Give us your everything. Wow. Taking over. I still had to drive to Johannesburg. It's Easter Friday. It's Good Friday.
Oh, yeah, you're going home for the weekend. Home.
I don't have money.
Sure.
I don't have money. We've not been paid yet. And because it's mid-month and I don't have the card.
You have nothing.
Fortunately, by that time, my father had gone back to the circuit and they were living in Durban. So my mom had to give me money to get me back home.
And you're not a young man at this stage.
No, I'm not a young man. I'm in my 30s. My mom had to fill the petrol and give me extra money to be able to get back home.
How was the hostile takeover pulled off, though? Because it's unheard of.
It was the partners,
Yes.
security people.
That's it, yeah.
You see, so they owned the money.
Essentially.
Yeah, they owned the business because it was their money. They financed it.
Yes.
You
But
know?
Hamban.
Yeah. And so there we are. None of us have got a job.
How many are you?
There's four of us now.
It's you, your wife.
Yeah, my Mfumbesi
Yes.
and my sister-in-law. We are back now, back in Joburg. No job.
What a mess.
No work. And let me tell you something, Mfowethu. It was tough.
I can only imagine.
You know, fortunately, we don't live too far from each other. To stretch the budget of whatever we
You had to support each
we
other.
had to support. We had soup this side one evening and another soup this side another evening. It went like that. As a result, my kids don't like soup.
You gave them too much soup.
Too much soup. It was the darkest moment. And, you know, when you are in a very dark moment like that, remember, during that period, that was a time also I'd been tired with the church.
Yes. Oh, that's when you were going through your own
I'd been tired
spiritual
with the
issues.
church. And
Yes.
I had not been going to church because I was angry with the church and in terms of its own conduct. And here this thing is happening now. I said, God, could this be my punishment?
Of course you asked that. They say God gets most phone calls during the hardest times.
Well, he got mine.
Yes.
He got mine until I just surrendered. I mean, I was literally at a point whereby now, remember during that period, I'm going for interviews now to get back into banking.
Yes, you want to get a job again.
I need to get a job
Yeah.
back into banking. I had given myself up. I said, Lord, well, you know what? Maybe I deserve it. But everything now I put into your hands.
Yeah.
I've tried every other way to hustle to find a way.
So you didn't get a job easily, essentially. It wasn't a quick...
Amen. I get an offer literally a month before I'm foreclosed on.
You were about to lose everything.
I was about to lose everything. If I didn't get that job and got that first paycheck at the end of the month,
Basically.
the next other month, it was gone.
Wow.
And
What job is this?
So I get an offer from Societe Generale,
Okay.
okay, an SG, Sosgen, we call it.
Uh,
And I tell you, it was a decent offer. You know, I was at a stage where I literally had surrendered my life.
Jeez. What does that teach you or teach us of the darkest moments? Because it's the second time, and you're probably not aware of the first time you said it, with the life in our ups and downs. That's what it does. But we learn if we do. What it did teach you during the worst of your darkest moments.
Maybe let me continue. Then the answer becomes almost obvious.
Go ahead.
Man, the offer came. I got on my knees, tears coming down my face, thanking the Lord for taking me out of this darkness.
Wow.
I mean, I was in tears, emotional. My emotions got the better of me. I cried like a baby. And next thing, my phone rings. I pick up this phone. How cheap was this guy? Last time I spoke with this guy, we were still at Nedbank together. Nedbank.
That's a while back.
That's a while back. He's in another bank now.
Okay.
So he's, hey, what's up? What's up? Hey, man, we haven't touched base in such a long time. What have you been up to? I said, well, hey. So I gave him a very crash version
Of the mess.
of where I am, where I was, and where I am now. God has liberated me.
Ngiphethe amakhiwo omnyango.
Ngiphethe amakhiwo omnyango.
Wow.
Have you signed?
Ooh.
No, I have not signed, but I'm going to be signing by the close of this day, that's for sure. So why did you come over for a cup of tea, a cup of coffee? Just come over. So I said, okay, I'm happy, I've got my offer here. I said, okay, I'll deal with this when I come back. Then I go there, and before I know, I've been to 3 interviews. I went in my jeans. You were going for a job. 3 interviews and an offer.
3 interviews and an offer. This is one day. You have 2 offers in one day. Wow.
And guess what? It's a much, much better offer
than the one you got earlier in the day. So it does turn around, this life thing.
It was 2 offers. One is, and then I contemplated about this and also spoke to one gentleman that I knew, and then said to myself, and I told my wife, we're not taking it.
Whoa. You're not taking the big one.
I'm not taking the big one.
That's an unexpected from someone who...
I'm in financial trouble. I'm deep in the red.
More than deep. Your children don't want soup anymore.
They don't want soup anymore.
You have much bigger problems. And you choose not to take it.
One piece of information that was to be a life-changing moment for me, which I omitted to share, was that during that period of great challenge, a friend of mine invited me for a cup of coffee. And obviously things were tough at that time. He said to me, what is your greatest fear right now? I said, it's my kid having to be taken out of school.
Jeez.
He was at Sacred Heart because of the fact that I could not pay for his school fees. And then he says, so what are these school fees? I said, man, I'm owing so much money. In arrears. So he says, what are the annual school fees? And I told him what the annual school fees were. Later that day, he gave me a check for the full year school fees.
Wow. Which friend is that? That's an important friend. What was the motivation?
He had his own motive.
Yeah.
I don't know what God said to him. But he was my lifeline for making sure that my kid at least remained in school. There's a reason I'm telling you this. So I said to my wife, we're not taking this. I said, how do I take this? I have just gone on my knees, giving thanks to God for what he has just done. I said, this is a test.
Wow.
This is a test about who are you?
Yeah, in this moment.
In this moment.
Wow.
And it reminded me at that moment of when the devil took Jesus in his moment of hunger and desperation, being up there for 40 days. And he said, all of this can be yours if you just worship me.
Yeah. It's an important lesson.
I said, this is the biggest test about mpela. who am I? What are my values?
Yeah.
Am I driven by money? This is testing my greed. Because what is this side does not mean that over time I will not come out of the red. This one is just testing me.
Jeez.
And I'm not going to accept this test.
That's a big moment. We are confronted with moments like that a lot. Politicians are confronted with those moments every day.
So I just said no. So I took this job at SJ, and I left the lucrative one on this side. Fast forward. We're now back in church. I mean, after that deliverance. In actual fact, that deliverance comes just as another experience had happened where a friend, well, it was not a friend, but somebody that I knew very well, his wife had passed away. And I was attending his funeral at the Bryanston Methodist Church.
Okay.
And there I actually saw one of the ministers who was my father's student. And I knew him back in Pietermaritzburg.
Yes. Yeah.
And then he told me about this church, and the head minister of this church. And I told him that, hey, man, the cartel, you know what? Just come. Just come.
Sit
Just come.
Yeah.
Next Sunday.
Enjoy the service.
Just come and enjoy it. Man, ngaphuma lapaya. I went back to my wife. I said, you know what? The sermon was though God said, this one was directed at you. It's like I was the only person there.
That's amazing.
And I was said, what? Okay. You should come to the next one. Come. Then she went, and then we had gone back to church.
Now you are.
And that's when this offer, soon after that, the offer come.
That's why in the beginning, you said you don't control the story.
The offer just came.
Yeah.
No longer soon after that.
Jeez.
And I think I'm 8 months into
without a job.
No.
Oh yes,
okay. 6 months.
Yes. Is it a job that you're enjoying? Or
No. Oh, it was a great job.
Yeah.
Oh, it took me global.
Wow.
I mean, I used to, because their head office was in Paris, so I'm spending time in Paris, and I'm being trained, sent to Kellogg in the US as part of their programs,
management programs.
Yeah, part of their corporate finance and.
Yes. I saw that in your story.
I'm having the time of my life.
and you're earning okay. Your life
I'm earning okay.
Yes.
Wow. And then we're coming from church, and then I come across. We were actually at Woodmead, at Fruit and Veg shop. Then I come across this gentleman whom I've known many years ago. I knew him very, very, very well, and we started talking. He says, hey, you know what? There are a lot of opportunities in the BE space and all of that. And we should look at some of these opportunities. Hey, if this guy knows that I'm still licking my wounds, I'm still licking my wounds. But I try to be very polite. Instead of saying for you to forget it, I said, okay, if you see something, you can just call me.
Yeah, I'll look at it.
I'll look at it. Needless to say, not too long after that, I had a phone call from him. And to come and have coffee with him at the Hilton Hotel in Sandton.
Okay.
And so I go there. I see he's not alone. There is a gentleman who is sitting there with him. And so I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Mxolisi Mgojo. And he says, hi, I'm Sipunkosi.
That's the moment you met for the first time.
That's the moment we ever met for the first time.
Well, we have to point out at this moment that he's become a very important part of your story beyond this point.
Exactly. That's the moment we met for the first time. And I'm telling you, within a very short period of time of meeting him, in that same conversation, he starts telling me about what Anglo Coal and Ingwe Coal, they are putting some assets together to create an SPV for PE companies to bid for these assets. And he's now trying to put a founders team, a group of people that he can pursue this thing with. And he invites me. So in this moment, I said to myself, but I don't know this guy. He doesn't know me. Why in the world would he even be considering me? So I turned him down. I said, hey, man, I'm not sure. I don't know anything about mining.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And you didn't?
I didn't know anything about mining.
Yeah.
So he let it be. You know, not long after that, Babu Nkosi then invited me he asked me, because he was going to be coming to Parktown, where in the vicinity where Societe Generale was, SG was. He says, can I drop by for a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
I mean, Babu Nkosi is such a pleasant guy, you know. I mean, it's very difficult not to like Babu Nkosi, you know.
So you had no reason to say no?
I had no reason to say no to him.
Yeah.
Comes back and he sort of put this proposal again.
He's still courting.
He's still courting me, you know. And then, but to cut a long story short, there was one other meeting. Of course, I'm not sure I'm the right guy for you.
What was your biggest problem with the entire thing? Why were you saying no?
Because I told him, I don't know how I'm going to add value to you because I know nothing. If I don't want to come here to be a passenger.
True.
If there's no value, I don't have money, so you can't be looking for money. So, but I've got to be of some value.
Yeah.
So ultimately, he sort of figured out, okay, banking, we may need some banking skills for putting this thing together. But more than anything, he managed to convince me that I could be in marketing. Because if you look at the fact that I had a portfolio of customers, of which ISCO was one of them.
Jeez.
That's another interesting story because we ended up merging with a company that is ex-ISCO. The guys that I was dealing with at ISCO became part of Exxaro also. The FD.
So these connections, they are incredible.
That's how come I'm saying sometimes things are not in your
control.
No control.
Yeah.
So that's when we put ASCs were together.
Yeah.
That's when we put ASCs were together to bid for these assets. There were over 65 BE companies.
Sure.
We worked from the time we submitted our bid until we were the preferred bidders and closed the deal. That was a 2-year process.
Whoa.
It was.
But it didn't require to not have a job.
We used to. No, we were working every Monday.
Yeah.
For that period, except Easter's and Christmas, we used to meet at PwC as the bidding team. We narrowed from over 60 to down to 23, down to 8, down to 3.
What?
The only person in our team that had any mining experience was Babu Nkosi because he had been head of marketing and logistics, and that's what I was going to become.
Okay. So at least you were learning from him.
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's part of the story. So, but we were considered the donkeys that dared to enter a July handicap.
Cheer.
Nobody gave us a chance that we would ever win.
Because you didn't have enough.
We were bidding against big names.
Sure.
Politically heavily connected.
And mining experience as well.
Yeah. And at that time, it was about connections.
Of course.
You knew what. So I won't mention who they were, but were the big names. You just have to think about during that period, which were the big names.
It's Thabo Mbeki's era of leadership. So I can only imagine names.
Who were the names.
Yeah.
But when we were down to 3 and we were going to put our final bid, we said to ourselves, what are we creating here? Because it's not just about just getting these assets.
And then what?
Yeah. It's about what are we creating here? What will be the legacy?
You were thinking about legacy already.
What will be the legacy?
Wow.
And we said, and we put it in our bid statement that with these assets, we will use as a stepping stone to create a diversified resources and energy business rooted in South Africa with a global footprint.
It's like Mandela's speech before he was incarcerated. It's an important moment.
Because it defined who Exxaro and Sizwe and Exxaro would be.
Till today.
You see, so that became very important because it was going to be defining our DNA, our values, our core, because we were thinking about the future beyond us.
Interesting. We exist in a future beyond you now.
Yes. I'm the last of the guys now.
Yeah.
That are stepping down.
It's amazing.
But the company
still there.
continues.
Yes.
Still growing.
Yeah.
It's diversified.
So much.
It's in resources. It's in energy.
It's an impressive part of the story is what you've done with one of your mines. Is it Groot Geluk, where you put in your own power? You're powering your own mine.
Absolutely. We're going to be powering our own mine.
Wow.
So you ask, why did Babu Nkosi pick me? One thing I can tell you is this. From the moment we got Sizwe, we formed Sizwe and we got those assets. One thing we never stopped doing, or one thing that we did consistently, at the end of the year, at the beginning of the new year, we would go and give thanks to God. We would go and pray. We would have a praying session for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And seeking wisdom for the year to come.
Wow.
We continued. Everything we did was through prayer. God, putting God first.
Yeah.
Giving thanks, seeking wisdom, seeking guidance. Acknowledging that wisdom doesn't come from within. Courage, the courage required, the strength needed doesn't come from within.
There's a source.
There's a source of it.
Yeah.
And you need to give thanks to it.
Wow. But he couldn't have known this when he first approached you.
Well, remember, he's on his own journey with his own God, or with his God.
Yeah.
And God does things which seemingly become crazy. Because Yambu's Babu Nkosi, I asked him one time, hey man, I never quite understood why you picked me. And he says, hey Mgojo, these relationships with bees are not always easy.
Of course.
When you brought with people which
total strangers
sometimes not 100% share the same values. And part of what we did with Babu Nkosi right from the beginning was to say that, you know what, we're not paying dividends when we're still ASS. We want to plow back the money. That didn't go well with some people.
Of course.
Created a little bit of strife. But God was with us. And we stood side by side together. And we went through very challenging moments.
I'm still curious to know why.
The answer was, I don't think I actually chose you. I think God chose you for me.
Yeah.
Because he knew that in my journey, I'm going to need somebody who is going to be prepared when things got tough to be in the trenches with me.
Yeah.
Back to back. Fighting.
And you've had those moments.
We've had those moments where we're in the trenches.
Jeez. Did you lose one of the people while you were bidding that just fell off the wayside?
Funny enough, the gentleman who invited me to the first meeting decided after we had won that he doesn't want to be part of the deal.
That's interesting. You've reached the...
We even offered him, please keep your shares even if you leave the crib. But he wrote us some legal letters saying that he doesn't want anything to do with us. He even splashed us in the front page of of the Sunday Times.
Wow.
You know, what we are nincompoops. The only person who knows anything here is Babungos.
The whole system is not going to work.
So we tried to say, here are their shares.
That's incredible.
I guess an important lesson is that everybody there's a season for everybody
Yeah.
in God's plans.
Wow. Got off a bus that was going somewhere not so bad.
Needless to say, I think many years later he did regret, but it was too late.
It was. And what happens now with Sizwe in the beginning? You still not a minor.
I had to humble myself.
Yeah.
I come in on the first day.
Now you quit your job.
We've quit our job. Ngozi has quit his job. He's the CEO. And now we are taking over this business. 4 operations with a small office in town, which was the Newco office. And so I say to Babungos, well, Babungos, you've been in marketing, so what am I supposed to do now? He says, well, first of all, you're going to be the office manager. We need all these sort of things that are required here.
Yeah.
And then he says, listen, I've got my own challenges. I've got to now start thinking about business. So here's a name and a number. Go and call this person, and maybe he can help you out.
It's like, oh, my thought.
So I call this person.
Who's that?
And I look at this number and this name, Gordon Ostello. So I meet up with Gordon Ostello. First time I see this gentleman, he's an old gentleman. He's retired. And so I introduce myself. And the first thing I say is that, Gordon, I said, no, I called him Mr. Ostello because he was older than me. He forced me to call him Gordon. I said, Mr. Ostello, I am the new marketing and logistics manager of something I have absolutely no clue of.
I'm told you can help me.
I was told you can help me. You know? And Kanti, that was Sipho's previous boss at Ingwe.
Wow.
He is the one that had been encouraging Sipho, even when he was still his boss, to say, you know, one day you'll make a good CEO.
Wow.
And when he was retiring, Anglo and Ingwe were busy creating this SPV.
Yeah.
And then he said to Sipho, the moment has come, put a team together.
Go ahead. That's
and bid for these assets. And he was the group international marketing and logistics for Ingwe. So he was Mr. Marketing and Logistics
of mining resources.
Of moving millions of tons.
Oh.
So I say, Mr. Ostello, I know you're retired. I know you want to spend more time with your family. Can I impose of myself on you?
Yeah.
All I'm asking, probably once a week, you know, I've got a spare office next to mine. And so he looks at me. Then he says, when do I start?
Whoa. Those are magic words.
When do I start? To cut a long story short, Gordon was there the following morning.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be there from just 8 until maybe 10, 11. Gordon was there every day, full day. He never even asked what the salary was going to be. Nothing. He didn't even talk about that.
What? He just came.
He just came, and this man never answered a single question I've ever asked him.
Which was? Well,
any
question, yes.
Each time I say, okay, what about this? He would tell me a story about the one time when I was in Japan in this negotiation. And then he will start telling the story, and then the answer comes out of the story.
Somewhere there.
Always the answer would come out of a story. The answer would come out of a story. And I said, what a powerful way to teach, because he could have just answered me without creating context.
And moved on.
I would have never understood what was the context of what became the answer to that story.
So you learned a lot from all those experiences.
My goodness, that guy. And that is why I spend a lot of time also mentoring. I love mentoring
Yeah.
people. I love mentoring. And in a lot of instances, I mentor people who ask me things and I'll tell them a story.
Yeah.
You know?
Because you've learned that trick.
I've learned to tell a story.
I'm curious to know now that you feel you can go and sell whatever you were mining. What were you mining? Were you mining coal even there?
At that time, we were mining coal.
Yeah. So Anglo sold or gave in that context
4 coal
of their
assets.
Wow.
Which one of them was Anot?
Yes.
Anot and New Clydesdale came from Anglo, Matla and Glissa came from Ingwe coal. They were put together.
Together. I hear that Matla, that's where you learned quite a bit
I learned
about mining because you went down to the trenches.
That's where it was the biggest mine. It was a world player. Mining guys used to come from Australia and other parts of the world to Matla to learn short wall mining.
Wow.
We were the leaders. By the way, this is where our minister Gwede Mantashe cut his teeth
as a
gold miner.
Oh, wow.
He led 23 strikes at the time that he was there.
Yeah.
23 strikes.
Jesus.
He used to say when a new GM came in, we're just going to say hi to him just with a strike, just to test his resolve.
That's amazing. So you're mshang strike. Sibone ukuthi wenza.
So ke simbone ukuthi
strong.
na. Yeah.
I like Gwede now. I didn't care for him until this conversation. Wow. But how do you end up at Matla? How does it, in that context, because you're part of this, it's come together.
No, because Maba's marketing. I have to sell a product. And I need to know how a product is made.
It's your mine, essentially.
It's our mine.
So you had to go down there.
I went there. I was going through all the mines, but it was the biggest one. That's where you could learn the most. Because of the fact that it was a big mine and it was a world-class leading mine.
Jeez. Do you remember your first deal where you say, I know something now, I can go and sell this product to...
Well, no. What happened is that Gordon would travel with me.
Gordon just got a job.
A very interesting thing. I invited his family to my farewell because I had to recognize a few people that played a really critical role in my life.
Yeah.
And Gordon was one of those. And I even shared this story at my farewell, that one day I got a phone call from his wife. And I thought, yes, I'm in trouble here now. Maybe I'm taking too much time from Gordon, from home, And then Monica on the other side says, Mxolisi, I want to thank you.
You got it, Pendlin.
I didn't know what I'm going to do with this man. He has been away for so long. I've developed my relationships with my friends and all of that. Now I feel guilty when I leave him and all of that. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. So you gave their family peace, but gave him a purpose, it sounds like.
And it was, I don't even recall how we even came to his salary because he didn't care about that.
Yes. He just wanted
for the money. I guess in him, he said, this is my opportunity to give back.
Wow.
How best can it to give back knowledge?
Because it goes generationally after that.
Exactly.
That's incredible. Because I look at this moment, because we've had your namesake, Mxolisi Mgojo here. And he speaks like that about you, that there's a man who changed his life. And he mentions your name. He says in a moment where all hell had broken loose, there was no hope. And this conversation took place. This idea of Arnold came about. And you said, maybe that's not a bad idea. It's interesting how he looks at you the same way. And I remember I asked him, what type of people do we become if all we ever do is give forward, is pass it forward?
You know something very interesting, and it's very, very biblical. Be of service, then you shall reap the rewards and the blessings from the Lord.
Yeah.
But you have to be of service for the betterment of humankind.
Sounds like a simple concept.
Be humble Because when you are humble, you are able to be, first of all, not arrogant. And when you are not arrogant, you are able to be respectful.
That's it.
Of people.
Irrespective of...
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because you see people for who they are, God's creations. All equal before his eye. And when you are humble and you are still, God can work with you. And inspire you. You wake up at night, a thought comes in. You didn't have it before the night. And yet it's a seed that has been planted. And it takes you in a particular direction that creates opportunities like you've never seen before. My journey from computers to mining, I even said so at the beginning of my farewell speech, is that it was not my journey designed by me.
No.
I could have never even have ever contemplated or even thought that I would ever find myself in mine.
Yeah.
Not only did I find myself in there, that with the people like Obabunkosi, we created something that we can leave behind.
Yeah.
Something we can say we have transformed even the people in the company, where today 90%, it almost represent at the levels of the operation, the demographics of this country.
Yeah. Even the newly appointed CEO.
Exactly.
Is a lady.
So this is part of the bigger plan of which maybe we are being guided here.
You know, I wanna go very quickly to what happens to this formation that you've built. It starts working now. You're owning mines. You have employees now, and hundreds of thousands of them. What does it do to that 10-year-old boy who was heading cattle? Do you feel this is too much to carry, or you're braving it as you're going?
The whole journey has shaped me in one way or the other. It's like one brick. Each part is a brick being laid.
And it strengthens the wall.
And it strengthens the wall. Sometimes when you put the brick, you don't see the big picture. You're just seeing that moment of a brick. And sometimes God has a picture of what he's trying to create. But along the journey, when uyohlala nomakhulu wakho, nogogo wakho,
yes,
you're going to learn responsibility. You're going to learn to work hard, which is going to prepare you when your parents leave you for 5 years. They've taught you certain values, and those values are the ones that keep you grounded. Because in spite the fact that they're not around you, there are certain values, you know what is acceptable at home, that keeps you out of trouble.
And you carry them with your whole life.
Carry them with your whole life. So each of these things are part of those building blocks. So when the moment like this comes, you know, and you just reflect and you just see what is happening, you know that, my goodness, why do I have to worry about? Because I know where my source of strength comes from. And that is why people ask you, because when I look at life, when I look even in business, especially business, I look at 15 to 20 years from now. I'm always thinking about where we can be in 15 to 20 years. Why? Because more and more today, there are disruptors that can take businesses which were at once upon a time at the top of their game. They were the number ones. They were the global leaders. But they don't exist today.
Anymore.
Because I've created a new thing which I use it in terms of just making it very simplistic, what I'm trying to say. It's called the village mentality.
Okay. How does that work?
If you grew up in a village and you've never left a village, you see the world through the lens of a village. The village is the world. Until somebody says, you know what, there's a town outside this village. And then when you go to the town, you start seeing things different than your village. And you say, wow, I was not aware that there is this town. But the town had been existing, by the way.
All this time.
But you were thinking like a villager.
Yeah.
Because you never took the time to go out. And once you get to the village, if you've not been to Joburg, you've never understood Machibas. is there a life like this?
That's true. It's those culture shocks you spoke about.
Until you think Joburg is the greatest thing, until somebody shows you Shanghai, Singapore, whatever. And therefore, and this is what I used to preach all the time at Exxaro. It almost seemed like it was a sermon. Get out of the village. Go and see the world. Go and explore. Go and take new thinking and ideas that are out there and bring them back. That's why we were able to create a digital mine in Belfast. The first digital mine, because I dared my team to go to the rest of the world.
Explain the digital mine for us. I read about it, but explain what that is in relative to other mines that we've known.
It's very simple. Okay? Very, very simple. You own a car. The car that you have today, in terms of its abilities and everything, and your first car, what is the difference? This one, it tells you everything.
Tells you the weather.
It tells you everything.
Yeah.
It tells you that your tires it tells you when this thing, it tells you when your next service, it's digitally connected and it's got a smart brain.
That's it.
A digital mine is exactly the same thing. It's so connected, and now you've got data analytics. You can see the whole mine from the one desk, end to end, from the hole being drilled until the product is on the ship. You've got the whole view of the whole mine. You can see, and with the algorithms and the AI, artificial intelligence being built, it's learning. Because it's being fed with more. That's what a digital mine does. It's even got a digital twin, a digital replica of itself.
Why is that?
Because you want to use that to experiment. In fact, we created a digital twin before we created the actual mine. Because you could optimize the digital thing without spending money of saying, oh, we made a mistake there. Yeah. The twin, you can, okay, now, this thing.
You can stress test it.
If this chair had to be stationary and everything had to be stationary here, there's a difference between me sitting here and me sitting here with this mic.
Absolutely.
But I can test that if I do it digitally beforehand, so that by the time I put it here and fixed it here,
you don't have to do that. You've already seen it.
I've seen it. I don't have to have the mistake to, oh my gosh, we designed it incorrectly.
But surely that must take not only huge investment, but a bold leadership to say, well, we should try it.
You see, that's the whole thing about the future. The future has not been yet created. But you have to say that you always have to continuously reinvent yourself. Because you'll end up having a Kodak moment. Okay? You'll end up having a blockbuster moment.
And that's it.
You'll end up having even almost a Nokia moment.
I was about to say. When you were talking about companies that died.
You see, and these were guys who were at the top.
It's a Motorola moment.
What is a motor? Because what happened? The minute they were at the top, they immediately created a village among themselves. To say, nobody else could ever be like this.
We are.
But somebody outside is doing something. Because you're not taking the moment to go out. It's yourself. What is this business in 10 years' time?
Yeah.
Is it looking like this? What new digital technologies are here? Or what new technologies that could replace this? Because if you don't also adapt and are always eager to learn, eager to explore, you will wake up one day, we're talking about cassettes. You'll wake up one day that you are producing a cassette, they are streaming today. They are streaming today. Somebody is building a streaming service. While when you are still thinking about, because I made the best cassettes, you know?
Do you realize, listening to you as a retired gentleman, you speak of technology like a young person. And I say this with the greatest respect. Does it have to do a lot with the tech that you started with in your career?
I don't know, because the tech that I started with in my career belongs into the dinosaur.
It's very old, yes.
It belongs to the dinosaur
But you
era.
have a tech way of looking at the world.
No. I recognize that technology is an equalizer. It reduces barriers because by and large, each one of these companies, they died because they were not prepared to adopt and adapt newer technology. I mean, Kodak came up with the digital technology.
They did.
It's not somebody else who came up in their own yard.
And they're not here now to celebrate it.
In their own yard. So it's about, even in your own company, being open and having a culture that allows and fosters innovation and thinking innovatively and allow for mistakes to happen, because there is nothing that is grown or learned without making mistakes.
And some mistakes will be costly. That's just the process.
Well, that is part of life, you know?
Yeah.
I think you when you grew up, you've had a few injuries that took you to the hospital,
Still have scars
and
to
still have scars to show. Okay,
Yeah.
but you learned from that, you grew from that.
It's a big moment, I must tell you, because the history of your mind speaks of a lot of successes. However, we don't know some of the challenges.
No, there's been challenges. We've written off 5.2 billion investments before
Jeez.
by going into the ROC, because by and large, that's how come a lot of experimentations we don't call. I've always said we should not punish people for seemingly making mistakes, but that's how you learn. You see, but other people will say, "Hey, we failed." I said, "Wow, what a moment for learning."
Yes. You're a great boss in that context.
Yeah.
Because people get worried when they've made major mistakes.
No, but that's not the type of culture. You cannot inspire and get innovation when people are always being scared.
Yeah. That they will
Be reprimanded.
Yeah.
In effect, you are killing the company because somebody else is going to come and take you out. Because they're going to bring something that's going to make you irrelevant.
Yeah. Let's talk about Exxaro, and it's what you've achieved. When you look at, in hindsight now, where the meeting started, you met with Mgosi and this formed. What do you say to yourself in terms of what you together has managed to create? You said it. You were the last of the formation to leave. What do you say in terms of what you've achieved? From no shop at all to a spaza shop to something amazing.
We are not people who brag and acknowledge that it is anything of greatness of us, of what we have been able to do. Because we know and acknowledge where the source of that really comes from.
Yeah.
You know, having been in a situation where I've almost lost it all, I know what it is to how circumstances can change dramatically overnight.
Yeah.
And so when you do see a life where you have been able to do these things, I mean, I had the fortune of being the president of the Mineral Council for 4 years. It was the first time that there's been a president that long. This is a person who never knew mining before. You understand what I'm saying? So part of what you've got to accept and understand is that, number one, we couldn't have been successful if we didn't have good people. I always surrounded myself with people who've been better than me, because gave me the opportunity to learn from them.
True.
I gave them the space to be the best that they can be by not inhibiting them, but by allowing them to use their God-given talent, because God gave them their own talent. And every one of us, we may be different in terms of color and everything. The blood still is the same blood.
That's it.
Okay? And each one of us have got great hope for ourselves and aspirations for ourselves. And you want to self-actualize. Allow a person to self-actualize. Create an environment to allow a person. They will take you to places that you've never even dreamt of. Wow. Because that is part of their journey of doing great things. And if you allow them and you recognize them and you acknowledge them publicly, That you are what you are because they are actually are the wind beyond, up beneath your wings. They are the ones who are lifting you up, not yourself. The greatest conductor of an orchestra is nothing without an orchestra.
That's it. That's true. Actually, without the orchestra, there's no sound that comes.
There's no sound
from the conductor.
Exactly.
Yes.
And the greatest conductor understands what is the type of music and will actually inspire the people to say, let's understand the score, because the score can be the same piece of this interpretation. Are we talking to the same interpretation?
Yeah.
And because I don't play the violin, I'm not going to go, hey man, why are you holding your violin like this? And when you should be, who said it has to be held like that?
Let's look at the final product.
Let's look at the outcome.
Yeah.
It's the outcome that is important. So allow people. And sometimes listen to when they also provide the great. I spent a lot of time with millennials. In actual fact, when I was crafting my strategy, the first time I came in, I had the opportunity to utilize a company called Future World.
Okay.
And Future World?
Yes.
Thinking about the future.
Yeah.
Those guys brought in people from Silicon Valley, all over to help us just getting our minds around this whole new digitalization, the Internet of Things and all of that. And in that team that was going to develop that strategy, I had 30 slots available. A third were my Exco team. A third were the different levels of management. And the third were all the millennials. We built the strategy together.
Because you do have a concept of future mining.
Yeah.
In some of the things you've developed over the past maybe 10 years.
Remember what I'm also saying is that people say, millennials. I said, yeah. Because the world is becoming so technologically driven. I said, when I go home and I've got a new tech gadget, I don't even bother to try and figure this. I just call my kids. Hey, man, can you come and sort? They don't even use the manual. I said, if I can rely on my kid at home to deal with such technological advancements, why would I not do that at work?
Yeah.
And so I created an environment around that recognized the millennials as being very important in contributing to the growth and the success. And I used to have coffee sessions with them.
Just to tap into their minds.
Every 2 months, I would have what are the professionals in training.
Yeah.
These are the guys who have just come out of university, then they go through a 3-year program. And I would sit with them in my office. This was even before I was CEO, when I was still running coal. I would sit them with them in the office. And I'll talk to them and say, okay, guys, how about things? What do you like about this company? What don't you like about this company? What would you do things different? How would you do things differently? In the meantime, they are bragging to their friends that they went to university with that. Hey, man, we get to sit. And I did that also when I was the CEO.
Yes.
We get to sit with our CEO. He even serves. I used to go in and I would say, okay, who would want what? Would you want coffee, whatever?
Wow.
I actually go and give it to them.
Yes.
You see?
Yeah.
And they are bragging, hey, but at the same time, I'm busy tapping into their brains. And when I implement something that has come from one of these ideas, I would recognize it in the organization that, hey, Lento, in actual fact, this idea came from one of these PITs when I was engaging with them.
Yeah.
Give them recognition.
Wow.
That's why for 2 years in a row, we were the best company. We were voted the best company to work for. Do you know that?
Oh, I didn't find that.
Yeah.
It's not.
Go and look at it.
Yes.
One time during Babunkosa's time and 2 times, 2 years in a row.
Wow.
Recently.
During your time.
The last one and the year before. We don't vote for ourselves.
No.
But the industry votes for us as being the best company to work for.
I don't want to lose this opportunity because I realize I asked you a question about the achievement of Exxaro, and you speak about people, and for me, that's what comes across a lot in a lot of the material I read about you is that you acknowledge people, you see them, and you say it quite a bit, and I sit back and say it's a lot to learn from someone who's achieved the size of a company that you have. Let's talk about the Mining Council for a second and its role. What is it exactly?
remember, we are regulated as an industry. So the Mining Council is the voice of the industry that helps shape policy, that helps shape even what happens within the economy. For instance, let me give you an example. When COVID happened, because as an industry, we have to subscribe to both health and also safety regulation.
Very stringent.
That is our thing. We were able to use that knowledge to help and come up with the protocols which were used by the rest of the country.
Because you were doing that even before. Yes.
We had clinics.
Yeah.
And we could shape the conversation with Gwede. We could help Gwede, the minister, become almost at the forefront of how to respond to COVID.
Yeah.
When the rest of the country was in level 5, we were at level 3 because of our procedures. And the mining charter is that collective voice which is represented by the president and his office bearers, the vice presidents working with the executive. They are the ones who help shape where the industry is going, shape how the industry is going to play in terms of policy formation, and also shape the industry in terms of how it's going to respond to crisis for the benefit of the country.
Yeah. It's an important instrument in our government or in our lives as South Africans. I say this because there's a challenge where the rest of the world is saying to South Africa, and I say the rest of the world, I'm sure it's not the rest of the world, specific countries that are saying to South Africa, speed up the process of decarbonizing and speed up the process of using less and less coal. And yet some countries are doing that, but at their own pace. Why is it that we find ourselves in a position where we have to be told what to do, and yet we have to do it very quickly?
That's a very good question, because they are the ones who did the polluting up front, throughout the whole industrial revolution and all of that. It's a power thing.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a power thing. But what is very interesting is that the same countries today, when an energy crisis happens in Europe, they are saying, hey, we are short of gas. We're not getting gas from Putin. We've barred Putin from giving us even some of the coal that we need. And therefore, we just need to now open up those old coal-fired power stations that we have shut down. We have shut down.
It's a power thing.
It's economics now. Okay, yeah. So economics now trumps idealism. Not to say that climate change is, by the way,
is a reality.
It's a reality.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm saying is that, and I've always been saying this because, countries like Germany, who started this drive towards renewables way in the early 2000s, because I used to market coal to Germany. And we saw this thing coming. And that's why we also went into renewables very early, because we started picking up this signal that this is the future, even for South Africa.
Yeah.
They had subsidized the renewable transition by the government because they knew that there was going to be job displacements. So government had to put in money to create new opportunities and new industries to support
renewable industry.
Yeah. So it was government supported. Okay, we don't have that type of fiscus. So when we say, guys, if you're saying we should transition, then fund this transition. Okay, help us fund this transition. But they themselves said the last coal-fired power station will be commissioned in 2038. Now, is that very fast transition to you?
No, not at all. And they said that in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And they
continue saying, they haven't said, oh yeah, by the way, with the advent of time, we are thinking to reduce that now to 2028 or to 2018. No, they are not saying that.
They gave themselves 38 years.
They gave themselves a long rope.
So in essence, we also need a long rope.
Of course we do. We've got even worse situation here in this country because there's a big communities, many people are dependent on this industry, the coal industry, the whole Mpumalanga, But what we need to do is to find ways of how we can reduce our carbon footprint. That's why we're now talking about, okay, can we do self-generation of power? And there are many other ways we can do that. Okay.
We still have a fair amount of coal reserves.
Well, no, we still have enough for the generations to come, but I don't think those will ever be mined.
And good quality coal in So you're saying they may not be mined because of
The economics.
the economics of it, yeah.
The economics, there's going to be so much pressure from the West in terms of taxing us for carbon emissions if we don't reduce or inhibiting trade with us. So there are many ways that they can put those levers, but we have to be seen to be responsible also to try and reduce it. But we have to do it in a way that enables our people to also get the benefit of that. And that doesn't have negative consequences.
Has mining as an industry done good by South Africans, in your opinion?
This has been one of always a big challenge that this industry has had to try and address. We have Joburgs today because of mining. That's the good side of the mining industry. There's an ugly side of the mining industry. We have dislocated families, dysfunctional families, partly as a result of mining.
Migrant labor
Exactly.
system.
So we cannot not acknowledge that. And that's part of what we have to do, is to acknowledge and publicly address that. And so we have been really trying to reinvent ourselves, not only by saying we're no longer the Chamber of Mines now with the Mineral Council, but what are we doing to give back? What are we doing for society? Okay? Because by and large, to be honest with you, we've become the de facto municipal councils in many places where we operate. Because those municipalities don't work.
So the communities depend on the mine.
Who do you think is fixing the roads? Who do you think is providing sometimes additional healthcare? Who do you think is supporting schools? Because in the absence of the municipalities doing that, the community says, but you guys are here. But we say, but we also pay taxes. That's supposed to give money to do these things.
So you pay double.
You pay double.
Yeah.
But you've got to do it. When COVID struck, we were very quick to make all our facilities available to the communities for testing, for vaccinations. We were vaccinating people who were not our employees.
Essentially, you're saying if that's the contribution of the mining sector, and if it continues, it creates a better environment for everybody.
What we need to do, though, is to better think about how, because this is a finite resource. At some point, it comes to an end.
Absolutely.
So what happens to those communities after that? We don't want to have what is happening go fry head, where now there are ghost towns, there's abject poverty. We know that happens. So we have to think about a different model about how we can repurpose the land while we are mining in a way that as we are doing concurrent rehabilitation, we can make that land productive so that we can stimulate new agri-economies and industries out of the land. So that's the next thing now we need to do, is how we think differently about creating sustainable communities post-mine closure, so that 20, 30 years after a mine has closed, there's a thriving economy around that.
You have been awarded quite a number of times, but in 2022, your retirement year, recognized as a business leader of the year. How do you receive such things? Do they even matter to you?
The award that I've just received, they say it's in all Africa.
Yes.
Does it matter to me? Of course it matters to me. It matters to me in the sense that, first of all, one has worked hard. Everybody wants to be patted on the back. But what it also does do is that it matters because it can show that you can start on a journey which you have no knowledge of.
Relatively late in your life.
Yeah. And you can achieve. What I hope that it becomes an inspiration for others, that it is possible, but you have to dare to dream. Not only just dream, you have to dare to venture. You've got to dare to dream, but you also have dare to venture. But don't do it for the accolade because you want an accolade. Do it because you want to be the best, and the organization, the people that you are responsible for, to also become the best. Because that award actually is not for me. That is an award for the organization. Because without them, it would not have happened.
What preoccupies you now that you can wake up and come to me and hang out with me for 2 hours. Surely there's more important things you could be doing.
I've taken a sabbatical.
Okay.
What does that mean? Is that I know that the time to continue giving back doesn't come to an end. I've got grandchildren. There's the next generations that you've got to think about. And we have an opportunity in our hands to shape what that future can look like. Yeah. So there is that responsibility, collective responsibility by all of us to that future of our next generation. So to sit on the side and complain and gripe and moan, the question I ask, well, show me your hands. How dirty are your hands? Okay. So what one has started working with business and other ways, trying, initiatives that deal with socioeconomic impact, those are the things that will find space in my heart to continue. But I also needed a little bit of a break. So I've taken a sabbatical.
Which is earlier than intended, am I correct?
Yes. I was supposed to have finished May next year, 2023. But yes. I said, let me come back. Nombasa was ready. So she's been with me for many years. So she was ready. I didn't need to go and stay until at that time.
Yeah.
But my sabbatical is about spending more time with the grandchildren, more time with my family, my wife, but more time on the mountain bike.
Yes, I know that passion.
I love. I've already broken this last year. I was out of action for 9 months. But I have this bucket list item.
Which one is it?
Which of doing my first Cape Epic.
Oh no, that's coming now.
In March next year. One is just finished. So I'm training.
If it was to come tomorrow, you're not ready?
No.
Okay, you need the time.
You need the time.
Yeah.
I'm giving myself the time to train for it.
And you're not a young man.
Put it this way, the Epic is in March next year. I will do it 2 months just before I turn 63.
Imagine that. Ubaba Nkosi says you're a young man, you left your job too soon. In his words, you're lazy. So I'm curious to know if he's right. How? Why you so early? So what do you say to that?
I say that's Babu Nkosi, the humorous man.
Yeah. You told us before we started this that golf is not your thing.
No, golf.
So you don't spend time on the golf course?
I mean, you can't do both in any case.
Yeah.
You can't mountain bike and golf. Otherwise, you'll not have a home.
No, that's true.
You've got to choose one of the other. But I saw very early on that golf, back when we were still ASCs, was that I'm a danger to everybody on the...
When you swing, and also, you're a great dancer, apparently. You got moves for days.
Those were the early days.
Oh, not anymore.
Those were the earlier days.
Can you do...
Although, also
now by asking, there was a time when you could do stuff.
The thing is that, we may be old, but as our group, the oldies.
Yes.
Those days.
Some of them are on the wall.
Some of them, those days come back. Sisbone sonke manje, sesishaya moves, saswashaya during those days.
Jeez, it's such an amazing honor to hang out with you. Like I said earlier when we started, I looked at it and said, this is not even possible. Because to me, you're literally one of those South Africans who have made such a huge mark. And we literally spoke about 5% of your story because we didn't even mention the Guptas once. And I say this because you're an important part of that story at some point, because you were clumped in with companies that were Gupta associates in some way. At some point, you even fell sick during that time.
Stress.
Sick to get to a hospital.
Stress. Yeah, fortunately, I didn't have to get to the hospital, but I had a mini stroke.
Ooh.
A mini stroke because of stress. I've had to go and testify in a parliamentary committee, and you're owning ESCOM, about that whole thing of Optimum and all of those things. So, these are the things you've got to, be prepared to do because, it's the right thing to do.
What comes to mind when you think that time when things were been taken, mines and all of that?
It's a very sad moment of our history, given the fact that so many gave of their lives for the freedom of this country. So mine is a cry and a pain for many people, many families who sacrificed themselves, who were sacrificed in the process. I mean, we had the world at our stage, prepared to usher us into this new democracy with a constitution that is hailed as probably the best constitution ever crafted. And we squandered that opportunity. We squandered it not only for today, but we squandered it for the tomorrow, all because of greed.
Yeah.
You remember when I started earlier on, I said that opportunity, which was much more financially lucrative.
Yeah, and you didn't take it.
And you didn't take it.
Yeah.
Those are the things that help you ground you to stay grounded. Like Mxolisi Jonas, who were offered something ridiculous, and he says, not a chance. Ingathi ndiyamvuma makhulu wakhe.
Fake you meant to.
Ukuthi wakhuliswa kanjani. It just shows you ukuthi ukhuliswe kanjani.
Yeah. Our fake you meant to who were offered stuff and they didn't take them.
You see, so there are moments when you can be tested. And you've got to always remember ukuthi angathini uma wakho ubaba wakho from the grave. if they could see this. Oh no, they see.
Of course they do.
They see. Yeah. And I'm sure bebekhona they are in pain. Where did we go wrong?
Wow, I can carry on for hours. I realize I'm a sucker for people with knowledge. I want all of it.
Stories.
Stories.
With stories.
Barry, as we conclude, you are invested in movies and production of visual stuff.
Yeah.
Why the interest in that?
Well, I'm part of a group that founded a company called Talent 10 some 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And again, you can say Talent 10. What an interesting name. Again, it's biblically rooted in terms of God's talents.
Those talents. Yes.
God's talents. But we said it's multiplied by 10 this time.
Wow.
So out of that, we've been looking at various investments. We've invested in the tech, in the Internet of Things tech platform, which was subsequently bought majority of the business. We still have we still own part of the business by Vodafone. And one of our founding members has been a lover of movies since he was a kid. So he's always had a passion to do something. So he sort of started a movie company on the side, thinking that we were not going to be interested, but at some point he decided to probably approach us as the talent, Babunkosi and I and Humphrey Mate, about this thing that there was a project that he was looking at that time also, and. Well, let's
try it.
Let's try it.
So you're a movie producer.
So let's try it. I
must tell you, the head suits the profile of a movie producer. So you came well dressed for it.
They will tell you at Exxaro, that's all they ever see me in.
Really?
Even in the company.
Yes.
I walk around with my hat. I give speeches with my hat.
Wow. We've had someone like that in the energy sector. Wachuban Lobabu, who was a chairperson of Eskom. I forget his name. Always had a head.
Jabu
on.
Mambuza.
Jabu Mambuza, exactly. Always had a head on. Wow. It's been an honor and a privilege. And I could speak to you more. It's unfortunate both of us have run out of time. But I'm in awe of your next step more than your past. Because I have a feeling we haven't had the last of you. And in your retirement, I have a feeling you're the type that doesn't really like to be home. Ukufana na Lubaba who
Gordon.
Aha. I have a feeling you're not going to be home for long. You'll be out in the streets again doing all this great work. So we wait for it.
God willing, there is still more to give.
I think there is. Are you in because I don't understand these type of retirements. Are you still in some way involved with Exxaro at all?
No. I'm a shareholder. Now.
That's it.
You see, it's very important to, and I mean, Babu Nkosi actually did this very, very well because he said, you know what, you have to give the space to the next CEO because you put them there because you've got the confidence in them. Let them lead the way.
So you're not going to call and say, hey,
fortunately, every 6 months, they have to come to us like they go to all other shareholders.
Yeah.
They have to come to the ASCs with shareholders and tell us on a roadshow. For instance, there is a roadshow.
Well, listen to that.
Yeah, so every 6 months, I have an opportunity. And at every AGM, I still have an opportunity as a shareholder to say, hey,
Yeah, I don't like this.
But I would not raise it in public.
Of course.
I would rather, if I had real serious concern, like what other shareholders do, they say quietly, just explain to us about why this and this and this and that.
Yeah. I wish you well, and I wish you more prosperity in your life. We're starting this new thing, and we're really happy that you're the first, believe it or not, to be the CEO corner. Those who shape the future of the country, who shape the past, so the future will have a road. Because we need people to say, "Nah, I'm God." So we say to you, thank you so much. We are really honored.
It is my honor, and really, I'm very humbled that you reached out to me, and I'm very thankful and grateful. And I'm wishing you guys all the best.
Thank you.
You're going to go places.
We're documenting South African history.
Write your history also.
Yeah.
Write your legacy.
Wow. That's so
in the process.
So much pressure. Thank you so much. Mxolisi Mgojo, everybody. We do this fist bump. It's you know it Danko, Mosi. Do you guys say Danko in your family? Do you know what it is? Ow, my daughter. No stain is in your ears. It's thank you.
Oh, Danky.
Danko.
Oh, Danko.
Young people say Danko.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, many of our young people have left home already.
There's no one now.
There's no one young person.
Do you know what? Let me give you this opportunity to say something to Uma Mendli.
Oh, my wife is my rock and my pillar. Without her, I wouldn't be where I am today. She's the one that keeps me grounded. She's the one who always say, never forget God in everything that you do in your life and stay humble. That's my wife.
So every single day you have this aura around you. That's amazing.
She's an amazing woman.
Yeah.
Amazing woman. Remember I said she was a friend. So I think there was a reason why it started out like that.
So that stayed.
That stayed.
Man, I want to talk about the wife now. Thank you, everybody. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, guys.
King David Studio Podcast.